Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey is always top shelf. Whether you got your start as a Dynasty veteran, a Millbury survivor, or you were born into the Church of Trotz, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, here are your eclectic hosts, Sean Cuthbert and Christian Arnold.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Saturday, July 9th, 2022, coming at you live from Blue Line Deli and Bagels in Huntington, Long Island. Big show coming up for you today. Going to be talking draft, going to be talking free agency, plenty of stuff to chat about regarding the New York Islanders. Mr. Brendan Burke, surprise guest, will be joining us from MSG, the play-by-play man for the New York Islanders. Allan Kreda as well will be joining us later on from New York Times. My name is Sean Cuthbert. With me, as always, is Christian Arnold. Christian, how are you?
I'm doing well. Exciting start to the show, Shawnee. Not only have we worked out some of the bugs behind the scenes, but there's a huge signing to announce. Philip Forsberg back to the
Is that right?
Nashville Predators. 6 years, $68 million.
Well, you can cross him off your wish list. He was on mine. I mean, look, it was going to be a reach no matter what. But yes, Philip Forsberg, hot off the presses, will be staying.
8 years, 68. 8 years,
wow, okay. All right, so he'll be staying with the Pred.
Yeah, spent his entire career there, and he will continue to do so.
All right.
So that's one name that's been in Islander fans' mind. That is one name that they can definitively cross off their wish list right now. So I guess the focus turns to Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah, I guess he would be number one on your list, my list, and most other people's list, right?
And bringing back Ryan Strome, of course.
Right. He's a 1B behind
Listen,
Johnny Gaudreau's 1A.
Has played great in Madison Square Garden, so
I guess that's true.
Played strong, played good hockey, played well in the playoffs, and I think the Islanders would take him back. Right?
Sure.
He'd be a welcomed addition to that lineup. Probably a bottom six kind of guy, but
yeah, right.
But certainly an interesting start to the show, to say the least.
Yes, no question about it. And before we get into it, I want to remind everybody that we are proud to be presented by R.J. Daniels American Bar and Grill, located at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center. The best place to catch the Isles when you can't be at the game. Also proud to be sponsored by right here, Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington. New spot, 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip. And, of course, UBS Arena at Belmont. Check out the menu at BlueLineDeli.com. And we're happy to be sponsored by Tide Technology, a voice-over IP company providing phone services for businesses across the country. If you're tired of dealing with long hold times and the impersonal service of companies like Spectrum, Optimum, and Verizon, give Tide Technology a call at 516-856-7800 for 3 free months of service. And, of course, sponsored by Oyster Bay Brewing Company, creator of Barn Rocker Session Ale, available at 12 locations at the Islanders' brand new home in UBS Arena, and even more distributors across the country from coast to coast. So, Christian Arnold.
Yes.
Once again,
what do I say?
Here.
Oh.
Free agency's on the way. We just got past the draft. The schedule is out.
Yes.
And Lane Lambert has rounded out his coaching staff.
Yeah.
What do you say, CA?
I feel like this is deja vu, if you ask me.
A little bit, right?
I got to shout out Mike4652Co in the chat, who immediately goes, let's put the band back together. Bring back Strome and Nino Niederreiter. And I think that's a great
You're on board
idea.
for that?
I mean, we were joking before the show. We were
Yeah,
looking
we
at
were.
like some free agent names. And honestly, Nino Niederreiter wouldn't be the worst player in the world either to bring back and find a role for him on this team. I don't think that would hurt the Islanders at all. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying that it's the top of Lou's mind, but certainly he's someone else I'd keep an eye on to see where free agency goes when it comes to possibilities to bring in up front.
Yeah, and look, we're going to dive further in depth into free agency later in the show.
It was just funny.
Yeah, of course. But as we were saying, too, it's a buyer's market. Like, there's a lot of available free agents. I mean, look, you're obviously going to like some guys more than others, but even if you kind of swing and miss on maybe your number one or your number two, there's some decent 3 or 4s, where you could say this guy could work. He might be able to help this team out. So I think that kind of works in the Islanders' favor. I mean, look, you'd love to get a guy like Gaudreau if he actually does get to free agency on the 13th. Islanders would probably have to shift. Well, no, they would definitely have to shift some salary around if they brought in a guy like that. But look, the thing is, I think what plays into their favor is the fact that it's a wide field right now, and there's definitely some names out there that are interesting that could help, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But folks, we're going to break right away because we want to bring Brendan Burke in to join us on the show. So thank you so much for joining us here at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY and your favorite podcast providers. We'll be right back.
Again.
Nikki, where should I go to watch the Islander game?
Dad, where should Fran go to watch the Islander game? Just tell her to go to RJ Daniels.
Love the Isles? Go to RJ Daniels and enjoy your favorite hockey team with their big screen TVs and in-game sound. RJ Daniels also provides indoor and outdoor dining, catering, a vibrant late-night bar scene, and weekly live entertainment. Need great planials? Go to RJ Daniels. Call or visit online at rjdaniels.com.
From the Coliseum to UBS Arena, we're still rocking the barn.
We made a product based on something that we're big fans of.
You're going to rock the barn, you're going to have a barn rocker.
Oyster Bay Brewing Company's Barn Rocker, available at UBS Arena and everywhere beer is sold.
I don't want to hear it. It's over. I can't believe they fell short again.
Yeah, but they played so well. They made it to the semifinals 2 years in a row.
The semifinals aren't the cup. God damn it, I hate those Lightning.
They'll get another shot at it next year.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore, all right? They lost, okay? Let me just sit here and enjoy the one thing that makes me a little bit happy. This fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty, turkey-filled Blue Line Combo. I eat 3 every day to help keep me strong.
Hey, Donnie, can I have one of those?
Coming right up. Talk about a blast from the Blue Line.
Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Our goal is to make you a hero.
Did you have a nice break? Well, it's time to get back on the couch for more Islanders therapy with Shawnee and C. Arnold on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching and/or listening to Hockey Night in New York. Join us right now, a surprise special guest from MSG Networks, play-by-play man of the New York Islanders and recent play-by-play man for the New York Yankees, Mr. Brendan Burke. Brendan, thank you so much for coming down to Blue Line. How you doing, sir?
You know what? I come down here all the time anyway, so it just happened to be that you guys were here.
It's just a matter of convenience.
I live not too far from here, so I'm here quite a bit.
Fantastic. Well, once again, thanks a lot for being here. And look, let's start out with this new experience for you, calling the New York Yankees.
Yeah.
How's that been?
It was great. You know, for me, it was, as much as being a broadcaster in the NHL was a childhood dream, I literally had a childhood dream of being the Yankees broadcaster. My dad used to cover the team as a writer, and so I used to experience the Yankee radio booth as a 9-year-old kid, and that's kind of where I got the spark to want to be a broadcaster. So to actually come back and do it as the Yankee broadcaster and sit in the big boy chair, if you will, was pretty cool.
You are literally living the dream, Brendan.
Yeah.
Living the dream. So, obviously, the NHL Draft has just passed, and the Islanders made a big move. They traded that first-round pick, the number 13 overall, to get Alexander Romanov. Been keeping tabs on the draft and what the Islanders been doing here. What do you think of the move?
No, absolutely not. It's baseball season, right? No, I have. It's interesting. At 13, you're talking about a pick that should be a good NHL player, but not tomorrow, right? This is a team that is built to win, and the window is open. So if you draft a guy that, 2-3 years, the Islanders still have first-round picks, right? They've got Simon Holmstrom. They've got guys that we haven't really seen yet as first-round picks that haven't been able to help this team yet. They get a guy that with the 13th overall pick that's going to help them today. And that's something that they probably weren't going to be able to do if they used that pick to select the 13th.
Yeah, no doubt about it, and it looks like they have more moves to come. We talked about before you came on how free agency is coming down the pike. You look at this roster, and what do you think? What do you think they need to add in addition to a guy like Romanov to probably just round the squad out?
All right, I'm going to be that guy first off, so all the Islander fans are listening. It's Romanov.
There we go.
I apologize.
No, this is going to be a thing, and I know it's going to be a thing. Let's get it out there early. As far as I know, in Montreal, whenever we talked to him, it was Alexander Romanov.
Okay.
So
it's good to know.
I'm going with that until I actually can talk to him again and say, hey, did they screw it up in Montreal, or were they correct? So we'll get there. But for the thing about it, and you guys kind of touched on this, the roster's set. If they want to make moves, they have to make moves, significant moves.
Yeah, right.
They obviously need another defenseman because with the with Chara's situation with Andy Green, like those are the holes they need to fill. They get one of those guys in Romanov. They obviously want to improve. So what can they do to improve? I guess that's what Lou's there for, right?
That's a fair point.
It is an interesting situation because, Brendan, everyone was crying for a puck-moving defenseman all of last year, and I think that's what Romanov is, at this point, is someone who can kind of help that. When you envision sort of what that defensive unit looks like next year, where do you see him fitting into that group?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think that you've got Pelican Pollock. I think that is, if everybody is playing well that's where they're at their best. You want that to be your number one pair. So if you lock those guys in and then move forward, Devon Taves, you guys mentioned him about winning a Stanley Cup, and it's great. He's such a good guy.
Yes, I
was
very excited
Noah
for him.
Dobson was the name I was trying to come up with there. I think Noah Dobson, you've got to consider your number 3 defenseman at this point. He's the guy. So now you're plugging in. You want him to play 20 minutes a night or close to it. So who's going to play with Noah Dobson with Chara gone if we're assuming that Chara is gone?
Right. And I think it's interesting, too. Sean and I were kind of trying to figure out what play coach. Where do these guys line up? What happens in the offseason? And I know everyone's still kind of strung up on the possibility of maybe Nick Leddy coming back. He's a free agent. He could be someone that could help this organization. And kind of going down that rabbit hole, Sean and I were trying to figure out where do they slot in, because Nick Leddy and Scott Mayfield had a unique situation when they were paired together. Do you put Dobson and Romanov together as 2 younger guys? Let's say that transpires. How would you kind of fit all of those pieces together?
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably if I were making it up right now, I would probably slot Mayfield in with Dobson and see how that worked. Just because, listen, the Colorado Avalanche are a unique situation.
Yes.
Cale Makar and Devon Taves work. 2 elite skating, puck-moving, high hockey IQ defensemen, they work. But for everybody else in the league, you need that balance. The guy, the stay-home defenseman, the tough guy in front of the net, the guy that can kind of do the dirty work in the corners, and then you get the guy that can get the puck out of the zone.
Yeah.
Working together. Having 2 of them together, if you were to get a Nick Leddy or another puck-moving defenseman, putting them together most times doesn't really work for the balance of the 6th defenseman. So if you get a guy like Mayfield that can plug in there with Dobson and make that work. However, we watched them all for a year. I don't know how many shifts those 2 took together. 1, 2? I mean, they didn't try that.
Yeah.
And trusting Barry Trotz and Lane Lambert and the rest of that coaching staff, maybe there's a reason why. They saw something that said, this isn't going to work. So it remains to be seen, where they slot together.
Yeah, I mean, the coaching staff did seem to like having a lefty, left-handed guy, right-handed guy. So it could just simply come down to the fact that Scott and Noah are both right-handed defensemen. Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And, we also mentioned before the show started talking about the coaching staff, how Lane Lambert's rounded out his staff. And, I mean, just to have an opportunity to hear what your thoughts on Lane taking over the team. He's a guy who, people have been talking about for years now that he was always going to be kind of a lead candidate for an open position here. Looks like Lou didn't want him going anywhere else. He elevates him up to head coach, and maybe just touch a little bit on the new blood, so to speak, taking over.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when I was in the American Hockey League, Lane Lambert was the head coach of the Milwaukee Admirals. And so I've seen him coach throughout the years. So that was a long time ago. That was the last time he was a head coach. I was there when I was in Peoria. I left Peoria in 2012. So, 2010, 2012 was the last time he was a head coach in professional hockey or in hockey in general. He's been learning from one of the best of all time for the last decade, which is great. So I'm interested to see, because I think a lot of people assumed that somebody would poach Lane Lambert because they wanted Barry Trotz. You wanted Barry Trotz light. You wanted Bill Belichick's coordinators. Right. How many of those have gotten head coaching jobs, right? You wanted Lane Lambert because you wanted what Barry Trotz had, and you wanted to bring some of that to your team. This is interesting because they had Barry Trotz.
Right.
And they chose Lane Lambert. So I'm interested to see what the changes with a relatively same roster, how he handles it differently than what Barry Trotz is. What will he do now that he doesn't have somebody telling him he can't do that? Obviously when he took over as the interim head coach when Trotz was gone, it's different, right? Like you're it's different. It's still not your team. You're just kind of following the orders and the game plan. Now he gets a chance to show us what he is as a head coach.
Yeah, he gets a chance to be the boss, and I think what Islander fans are curious about is whether or not he's going to open up the offensive side of things a little bit, right? I mean, they've been so well known for being a great defensive team, not giving up a lot of goals. Is Lane Lambert going to try to help open that up, maybe just put a little more offense into the system?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Lane Lambert was on the staff last year. If they had a magic key to turn and bring in more offense, they would have done it.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm not so sure that systematically it's going to be significantly different. It might be. He's going to have some ideas. I would imagine it's going to be more tweaks than changes because, again, this was a coaching staff, and he was a big part of it. And if he had something that would work, they would have done it or tried it. So it would be interesting to see. I think that obviously, do they need more offense? Yeah, they do. How do they get that? I'm not sold on Trotz's system being the reason why they can't score, right? Alexander Ovechkin didn't seem to have a problem in Trotz's system.
That's fair, yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. But, I don't think it's, okay, Trotz is gone. Here comes the offense.
Right.
And if it does, are we talking about a Doug Waite situation where they're losing 7-6, right? Like, I don't see that happening either. So, you don't abandon what they've done defensively because that's how you win. And they've got the goaltending and they've got the D to do it. They just need to find a way to generate more offense.
And I think that's why so many people go back to that narrative, because we went from everyone seeing scoring to just this shutdown, lockdown defensive style that is so much different than what Doug Waite was kind of using there when he was coaching the Islanders. So it is an interesting narrative, and you kind of forget about it after a while. When it comes to Lambert's success this season, how do you think people are going to look back on that first season when all is done? I know you're kind of looking in the future here, but obviously with the idea of coming right after Barry Trotz as head coach and the success that he had, how do you sort of gauge a successful season for Lane Lambert?
I mean, I think you just have to see, obviously, an improvement as a team. Yeah. I think they're a playoff team. If they miss the playoffs, it's not a success. I think that's the bare minimum. Mm-hmm. That's the bar. The bar is set at playoffs. Other than that, I think you want to see individual players progress, right? Like that's, you talk about coaches, and you usually talk about it in a minor league sense, but you want to see players develop. And so can you see players take steps forward? We saw that with Noah Dobson this season, took a huge step forward. I think that was a success. You're going to want to see some of the younger players that are on this roster have steps forward, whether it's an Oliver Wahlstrom or Kiefer Bellows or somebody else that comes in and makes the team out of camp. You want to see progress from the younger guys, and you want to see some of those older guys, do what they're supposed to do. I think Brock Nelson had a tremendous season. Can he do that again? You get another healthy season from Anders Lee. Matt Barzal, does he continue to progress as a player? Listen, he's a great hockey player, but he's not done. Right. He's not top of the list. He's not a number one center. He's not a Connor McDavid. He's got room to grow, and you want to continue to see that happen. He had such a good rookie season offensively. Right. Now he's a more complete player, and you're starting to see that evolution, and he's getting there. But when can he get to the 85, 90 points offensively while being a responsible defensive player? That's what we haven't seen yet.
True. And they're also going to need guys to get started a little sooner than halfway through the season. You look like guys like Palmieri and Parisi and whatnot. And they put up great numbers once the second half started. But you just look at, there's so many different reasons that we've gone over ad nauseum on the show, left and right on social media, and, with the road games and all that stuff. But, this is a team that needs to come out of the gate here to get some wins, so they're not playing from behind all season. Yeah,
I think that goes for everybody, right? You get this is the first normal season we've had in 3 years.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that everybody needs to remember. Not only is it normal in terms of COVID protocols and all those other things, and hopefully we'll avoid postponements and cancellations, but no Olympics. We're starting on time. We're back to Thanksgiving, actually meaning Thanksgiving when we talk about whether or not they're in a playoff picture. The Islanders building obviously is ready. There's so many things that make this a normal season that it almost makes you want to throw last year out the window and say, all right, let's see what you got now. Like, let's see what you are in a normal season for everybody, individually and as a team.
I would even argue that it's the first season in 4 years for the Islanders, because that first year under Trotz, they were still doing the Coliseum Barclays thing. Yeah. They were doing back and forth between Brooklyn and the Coliseum. He never had one normal season with this team, and now he's gone.
Interesting turn of events. We're talking with Brendan Burke, the TV voice of the New York Islanders. Also, if you were listening to the Yankees last weekend, he was the fill-in radio voice for the Bronx Bombers in one city that I think you're somewhat familiar with. One city you were very familiar with in Pittsburgh, and I actually had seen you at Yankee Stadium a little bit before that after the news, and I joked, they could have given you a couple better cities, but I do want to go back to that for a second, because that you talked about, that was something that inspired you to be a broadcaster and kind of has had such a memorable impact on your career. What was it like sitting in that booth, the last for 5 games, and kind of getting that experience and being able to live out your childhood dream? Yeah,
so I've had about a month to build up to it between the time that I found out that it was going to happen and the time that I actually got to sit down in the booth. And so, the one thing for me was, yes, it's a childhood dream. Yes, it's something I've always wanted to do, but I don't want to suck at it, right? That's fair, right? Like, you don't want to go in and be like, hey, I'm here, I did it. And then everyone's like, why are you here?
Yankees.
Yeah. So it was a stressful month to kind of prepare for the Yankees in baseball because there's a difference between following the team and watching the team and doing what we do on a daily basis, and kind of living the team. And so I tried to do that for the last month, which was hard. And then I hadn't called a baseball game in a long time. I've been a hockey. I did call minor league baseball out of school, but apparently I'm older than I used to be. I don't know how that happened. But I hadn't called a baseball game in over 10 years before I sat down in that Yankee booth. So, that was a lot to get ready for. And then I've had this build up, and it's been July 1st, July 1st, July 1st, July 1st, and they got rained out.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
It's funny. I looked at that game. I was like, all right, let me tune in. I looked like, wow, that's.
So instead of having a July 1st debut and kind of going back to the hotel and assessing, okay, this is what I did well, this is what I didn't do well, this is what the information I had, this is what I didn't have, I got a rain out, and I got 2 games in a row with no time to prep in between the next day. So it was interesting, and then another day game on Sunday in Cleveland. So I got 3 games in 36 hours, it felt like.
You got the full Yankee experience, right?
I did, but it was hard for me as a broadcaster to kind of adjust to game by game and, okay, how can I get better? Yeah. Then I got the off day on the 4th of July and the 2 games in Pittsburgh, which felt way better. But it was an incredible experience. Like I said, to sit in that chair that has been, the Yankee radio booth is the crown jewel of so many in broadcasting, right? Like, there's something, the Yankees are special. Apologize to all the Mets fans listening. Yankees are special. And the Yankee radio booth forever has been the booth, right? And so to be able to go and sit in there, regardless of my history in there, is a special moment, and then to throw in my personal history on it was fantastic.
And speaking of prep and adjustment and whatnot, I mean, obviously hockey and baseball are 2 extremely different sports. So when you go from one to the other, I mean, how do you approach calling a baseball game compared to calling a hockey game?
Oh, listen, for me, and I've done all of it. I did college football for Fox. I've done basketball a little bit. Obviously, I've done hockey and baseball. Hockey and baseball are the 2 hardest sports to call as a play-by-play broadcaster, in my opinion, and for the exact opposite reason. Right, like I could go into a hockey game with, especially on radio, with minimal prep. The rosters, follow the puck, you can call a game. Yeah. You're not going to win awards for it, but if you handed me 2 rosters for a pickup game down the street, I can go give you a game.
Might take you up on that.
Baseball. I mean, so when I did, my whole life was geared towards baseball. When I was a kid, like I said, I wanted to be a baseball broadcaster. I get to college, and I call my first play-by-play game for baseball. And it was terrible. And I didn't understand it. I'm like, I've tried so hard to be ready for this moment, and it was hard, and it was awful. And first of all, I called my dad. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. Like, this was what I wanted to do. And I'm like, I did not enjoy that. And he goes, listen, first off, it was your first game. You're 19 years old. It was game number 1, so relax.
Yeah.
But the more I thought about it, it was, okay, it's way easier to call a New York Yankee Boston Red Sox game than it is to call an Utica College game with no notes, no media guide. You've got no backstories on players. And to fill a 3.5-hour window with no information and minimal action is impossible. Yeah. So for me to do the Yankees, it's easier than doing minor league or college baseball. And when you work with somebody like Susan Waldman, who has the wealth of knowledge that she has and fills a lot of those spots that I couldn't fill because I haven't been with the team as long as she has, it was great. But baseball and hockey are incredibly tough. Hockey because you have to keep up with the action, and baseball because you have to create the action.
Brendan Burke, the television voice of the New York Islanders. Brendan, we will let you go on that note. I say you've come with a bit of an entourage, and I can sense they want to get out and enjoy the nice day that we have today.
They're usually good when you feed them, but I think they're running out of food. So
that's right. Brendan, we can't thank you enough for coming down and for taking this much time and bearing with us some of the technical difficulties.
All good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Brendan, thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Brendan Burke, ladies and gentlemen, from MSG. You know his name. You know who he is. You see him on your TV watching those Islander broadcasts. Big thanks to him for joining us on the show today. And Hockey Night in New York rolls on.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
We have another guest coming up, too.
We do. Allan Kreda.
Associated Press, New York Times.
Is he ready to go?
He's been on the televisions.
He has.
He has.
All right, folks. Well, once again, I want to thank you all for tuning in to Hockey Night in New York here at twitch.tv/Hockey Night NY and your favorite podcast providers. We're going to take another break. When we come back on the other side, Allan Kreda of New York Times will be with us.
Nikki, where should I go to watch the Islander game?
Dad, where should Fran go to watch the Islander game?
Just tell her to go to RJ Daniels.
Love the aisles? Go to RJ Daniels and enjoy your favorite hockey team with their big screen TVs and in-game sound. RJ Daniels also provides indoor and outdoor dining, catering, a vibrant late-night bar scene, and weekly live entertainment. Need great planials? Go to RJ Daniels. Call or visit online at rjdaniels.com.
From the Coliseum to UBS Arena, we're still rocking the barn.
We made a product based on something that we're big fans of.
You're going to rock the barn. You're going to have a barn rocker.
Oyster Bay Brewing Company's Barn Rocker, available at UBS Arena and everywhere beer is sold.
I don't want to hear it. It's over. I can't believe they fell short again.
Yeah, but they played so well. They made it to the semifinals 2 years in a row.
The semifinals aren't the cup.
God damn it, I hate those Lightning.
They'll get another shot at it next year.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore, all right? They lost, okay? Let me just sit here and enjoy the one thing that makes me a little bit happy. This fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty, turkey-filled Blue Line combo. I eat 3 every day to help keep me strong.
Hey, Donnie, can I have one of those?
Coming right up. Talk about a blast from the Blue Line.
Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Our goal is to make you a hero.
Okay, a plane.
Couch for more Islanders therapy with Shawnee and C. Arnold on Hockey Night in New York.
Oh, welcome back to Hockey Night in New York. I'm Christian Arnold. With me, as always, Sean Cuthbert. And it's everyone's favorite time of the show. As always, of course, that's on the line, brought to you by our wonderful friends over at Thai Technology. And with us on the line from the Associated Press, you've also seen his work in the New York Times. You've seen him on television on Fox and NBC. That's the great Allan Kreda, who is helping us out and coming on to talk more NHL hockey. Allan, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well. We're doing well.
It's a beautiful day.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day out. A lot of excitement in the National Hockey League, and we get to chat with you, so this can't be bad. It can't be bad. And, Allan, I got to start with the news about Filip Forsberg and the contract extension that he signed in Nashville. Obviously, that's a bit of a blow for any Islander fan that was hoping to see him potentially in a New York Islanders uniform. But is there any surprise that Forsberg, at the end of the day, ended up back in Nashville after spending his entire career there?
Not really. Those kind of contracts never surprise me. If you're home, you have family, you're there.
Yeah.
There's rarely a reason to leave and flee, even for a few more dollars. So he's getting his near max contract, 8 years to stay in Nashville. Tremendous fit for them. No real reason to leave, publicly.
Yeah.
So, no surprise at all for me.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Allan, and I guess that's just a name that Islander fans are going to have to cross off the top of their list, and I know he was probably number one for a lot of people. Whether it was realistic or not, who knows? Obviously, you have the salary cap situation and whatever maneuvering they might have to make in order to make a guy like him happen, but I was saying earlier on the show that it's kind of a buyer's market here in free agency where there's so many guys available, some very intriguing names. You obviously have Johnny Gaudreau now, who probably tops that list. You have some guys like Vincent Trocheck, and we joked about a little bit about Nino Niederreiter earlier in the show.
I'm all about bringing Ryan Strome back to the Island as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's pretty common knowledge at this point, if you're following the New York Islanders, that they need a little more help up front and at least another top 6 forward that can hopefully put some more pucks in the net. Is there any name that stands out to you that you might be interested in seeing the Islanders kind of hone in on?
Why not bring back Nino Niederreiter? That's the one.
Why not?
Why not? I mean, Claude Giroux, I don't know what his goal is, but that's certainly a scoring player. 34 maybe wouldn't cost top dollar. The pre-agency is such a random situation. We look at the names every year and we think, oh, this guy might go here and that guy might go, and then they cross us up and go somewhere else. So I think that there'll be perhaps less on the crazy contract side, just because the cap is not as freewheeling as it has been. So there's more of a challenge for teams to not overspend. We're not seeing any Zach Parise, Ryan Suter type of contracts anymore, anything close to that.
Right.
So there are limits. There are limits even with all these names out there to who can afford what, where.
It's interesting you say that, too, because does that potentially bode well for Maybe a Lou Lamoriello in this situation where the Islanders are still operating. There's a lot more cap space. We're not saying that they're operating under the tight budget that they've operated in years past, but having a little bit more of that they try and be a little more conservative with their spending. Does that maybe help them when it comes to some of these bigger name free agents? When you look at it and you go, the market maybe isn't there where like a Claude Giroux would think there would be, or Johnny Gaudreau possibly giving the Islanders a little bit of a leg up there, knowing that this is a team that also could work its way back into being a cup contender in the next year or so.
Very possible. Very possible. And I'm looking at the top 50 names. There are a lot of good players with unknown price tags. Andrew Kopp, he had such a run for the Rangers. How much is he going to cost? You've got Darcy Kemper floating out there all of a sudden. Maybe he didn't expect that. How much is he going to cost? Nazem Kadri is going to cost top dollar. But few teams can afford him. So you have a very serviceable Max Domi out there. Maybe he stays in Carolina. But players' numbers, they almost immaterial in this oddly sort of frozen salary cap world. So it could help the Islanders in terms of not inflating the market, but only Lou can fully answer that one.
Yeah, without a doubt. And if they are insistent on bringing somebody in, I mean, they almost have to move somebody out. Now, whether it's part of another quote-unquote hockey trade where they, trade somebody like a Beauvillier or a Josh Bailey perhaps to unload some salary to bring something back, or maybe you unload somebody like that for draft picks, because according to what we're seeing out there, Lou Lamoriello seems pretty insistent on keeping Semyon Varlamov around. He brings a $5 million price tag with him, so you got $9 million between your two goaltenders. So something's got to give somewhere. And I mean, does anybody look more expendable than another guy as far as the Islanders roster goes?
Perhaps Josh Bailey, but he's still owed $5 million the next 2 years. I don't know if they really want to trade him or let him finish as an Islander. It's a riddle. They don't have a whole lot of wiggle room there. The top names, of course, aren't going anywhere. Beauvillier is still young at 25. Can't really see trading him. So you bring in Romanov, not an expensive option at 22, a good move. And the goalies are a good tandem, a solid move for another year. Then they can worry about that next summer when Sorokin's another year older, and of course they'll have to re-sign him after the following year, summer of 24. So the pieces are in place. I don't know. Lou never really makes that bold trade either. Everything is by design, or there's a bigger plan that is hard to decipher at first. So there might be one big splash move. I don't know if I see a big trade along with the big splash move. Maybe a smaller trade of something we haven't thought of, but it could really only Bailey and Beauvillier are the trade chips at this point, judging by how many years they have left and their relatively reasonable price tags.
Yeah, I agree with you, Allan. I think, but if they are going to make any sort of splash in free agency, it almost feels like one of those guys have to go. I mean, with $12 million in cap space, they still have to re-sign Noah Dobson. He's going to get a pretty penny. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to give Romanov some kind of contract, while not very expensive. But it just seems like if they are going to add to this team, somebody's going to have to go. Well, so it remains to be seen if that happens or not. But to touch on Romanov, we were talking about him a little bit with Brendan Burke before you came on. And, I got to thinking, when the Islanders brought in Semyon Varlamov, I mean, obviously outside of just being a great goaltender and a guy, you wouldn't mind having between the pipes, but there was a lot of speculation behind the fact that he was pals with Ilya Sorokin, that maybe it would be a way to kind of, make a more welcoming environment for Sorokin. So he had a guy there, obviously a fellow Russian, speaks the language. And when I look at this deal with Romanov, do you think that there's anything there as well where maybe Lou keys in on a guy like that because he does have a history with Sorokin, where maybe he's just another guy that can make him feel comfortable and be happy to be in that locker room?
Sure, certainly makes sense. Anytime you can bring a countryman in, we've seen it a lot of times with Swedish or Finnish players where they bring an older guy from one of those nations to be with a younger player, rookie. It can only help acclimate, get used to the system, part of the team, on top of the language. Everything counts. Certainly, Ilya Sorokin has blended well. So another friend of his on the team, I'm sure, raises those guys' games. and you just get a better team dynamic out of it. So sure, it makes sense. I mean, none of us knew a ton about Romanov, but everything I read and heard is very positive and upbeat. He's only 22, plenty of upside, not expensive. That's key in Lou's world at the beginning. Big contracts come later, so same age as Noah Dobson. It's a good core. They can't keep going with Zdeno Chara and Andy Green beyond a certain point, so they had to get younger, and that gives them some flexibility to make other moves. So yeah, I think it would certainly fall in line with that concept.
Talking with Allan Kreda here on the line, brought to you by our friends over at Thai Technology. Allan, when you look at the Romanov move, we are going to stumble over that name a lot, Shawnee.
Yes, we are.
When you look at the Romano move, do you think that the value of the pick that was traded was worth the value of the player that they received? Obviously, social media is never a great representation of reality, but a lot of people bringing up the idea of what the Islanders were able to get in return for a guy like for Devon Tays, who obviously went to Colorado and has now won a Stanley Cup. But when you look at that trade the Islanders made on draft night, do you think that the value that they got in return of the player was worth the 13th overall pick?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's a tough one. Apparently, they didn't see what they really wanted to keep it for at that place. So that's the riddle we can never really answer. I always hesitant to trade first-round picks, but as we've seen, gems come much later very often. So just because it was that pick
at
that time doesn't mean it was the next Ryan Getzlaf.
Right.
So it's a riddle. It had to be something seen in terms of filling an immediate need that made Lou say, okay, then. But I'm sure if it was a top, 5 pick, 7 pick, it wouldn't have happened. But we've seen those kind of trades before too that haven't worked out. The Rangers 5 years ago traded up to get number 7, turned it to Elias Anderson. We don't know who that worked out.
Right.
So it doesn't always work out. That was an unmitigated disaster, really. Looking back, I mean, from the whole of that trade wasn't what they intended. So Tony DeAngelo coming to the Rangers, Derek Stepan, Antti Raanta. So things don't always work out with those kind of trades. I from the flip side, it can't hurt to have an established young player either. So instead of waiting 3 years for the 13th pick, they have a young player that's going right into the lineup in October.
Yeah, it's an interesting move. There's a lot of potential upside, and I think that's kind of what everyone's hoping is that potential upside develops. But Allan, with that in mind, when you look at the 2022-2023 New York Islander defensive unit, the other question is who is playing alongside some of these guys. You look at Pelech, Pulak's going to be there. Romanov, assumably, is going to be there. Dobson and Mayfield. You mentioned that the Islanders can't really continue on with guys like Zdeno Chara or Andy Green anymore at this point either, which makes sense because you saw the success or lack thereof with Zdeno Chara. And Andy Green was serviceable, but there's only so long he can be serviceable and effective if this team's looking to compete for a cup. But when you look at that last defensive spot, is there anyone, in the organization that's set to kind of fill that void, or is this another free agent signing that the Islanders have to make? And is there anyone you would look towards that could possibly be in an Islander uniform next season?
Maybe Robin Salo makes the leap. Maybe Sebastian Aho sticks around full season, more of an impact. Robin Salo has been on the highest on their radar for a couple of years now, so he's probably the most likely. Of course, I still have Thomas Hickey in the minors, but
that's right.
I would bet on him. I mean, he was a high-round pick, too. He's shown some promise. He hasn't played a ton of games up, but I know Barry Trotz spoke very highly of him. So they were watching him closely, and he's still not expensive, of course. So, but only played 21 games for them last year. Certainly not enough of a workload to judge by, and he only had 40 games plus some playoff games at Bridgeport. So he's still young and on the rise. So maybe he's the one. You never know. There could be some surprise emerging player in camp. That happens once in a while. And maybe they keep Andy Green. I don't know. Maybe they keep him one more year. It's conceivable. So
I mean,
anything is possible.
The only way I see them keeping Andy Green is as a seventh defenseman. They can't go into this season with him as a regular. And I like Andy Green.
Right.
And as it's been said, he's been serviceable. Yeah. But I mean, you look at that age, and you know, he's if he's not at 40 already, he's right there. So and his age and Zdeno Chara, they were both exposed last year without that foot speed, and we saw how much that maybe didn't hurt them necessarily on the defensive side of things. The defensive numbers were still good, but the offensive side was still suffering. They were having trouble transitioning the puck the other way, and they just need younger legs. I mean, that's the bottom line. So, I mean, I would be a little discouraged if Andy Green was brought back to play the left side, whether it would be with Dobson or with Scott Mayfield. I think there's got to be somebody else brought in if Robin Salo isn't ready, and I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to Salo stepping in and maybe playing that third pair with Scott Mayfield. Maybe he's ready.
Maybe. I mean, sure. I'm sure. Maybe Andy Green could be a perfectly fine 7. You need that one guy that doesn't always play.
Right.
They've done that in the past, so it's not. Dennis Seidenberg was in that role for a while. They had somebody around just in case, so can't hurt. It won't be expensive. I think he likes it here. From what I understand, he's very much a loop player. I'd be shocked if they re-signed Chara at 45. But stranger things have happened.
Yes, they have.
It would
so you never know.
Oh, it would be that would be a very interesting end to the offseason.
That would be a rough day on social media in Islander country. I'll tell you that.
Rough day. Yeah. Those happen, don't they?
Allan Kreda from the Associated Press. Also, his work has appeared in the New York Times. He's been on Fox 5 and NBC with Bruce Beck during the playoffs this year for his coverage of the New York Rangers. Of course, Allan covers the Islanders as well, or we wouldn't have invited him on the podcast because we know better
right,
at this point.
Of course.
We just brought in a Yankee guy, so.
That's true. But Allan, before we let you go, and we really do appreciate the time that you're taking to join us on a beautiful Saturday morning, afternoon at this point. When it comes to next season, when it comes to the Islanders, the 2022-23 Islanders season, do you expect any big roster surprises once we get to the start of training camp? Do you expect a big name or a big signing to come out or to be in a New York Islander uniform when training camp opens in September?
I really don't right now. Just something about keeping it as it was. They weren't – last year wasn't the disaster everyone – may have thought it was or looks like on paper. I mean, they were up against it in so many ways. The team wasn't that different from the team took Tampa Bay to Game 7 Eastern Conference Finals. They had the trip. They had the COVID disaster. They had injuries. They had so many things that worked against them early in the season that I don't think we ever really saw the true team. The second half was better.
Right.
So are they that far off? They're not. They didn't need the complete rebuild like Montreal did or like Ottawa does or like Chicago's going through. There aren't that many missing pieces. They definitely needed more scoring.
Yeah, right.
And it wasn't there enough. But a giant piece, I still don't sort of see it. Lou's ways are more methodical.
Right.
So I see the core still staying together at least another year. Of course, the big wild card, the big question mark is the coaching change. Is Lane Lambert just Barry Trotz 2.0? Is he Barry Trotz 1.5? Like, where are we? Where are we with that? It's still a little sort of hard to believe Barry won't be there.
Right.
With all that he accomplished and how far he brought them along. To me, last year was a complete outlier. Everything about it was odd and weird from the beginning. You can't win when you start out with a road trip, even though they started out 5-2-2. It was off from the beginning. The glut of games, everything was against them, and then of course the COVID disaster just hampered them no end. Not just the games players missed, the games players weren't 100% for going forward. It just was too much to bear. They were behind by too much. You're playing 60% of your season knowing you probably have no chance of the playoffs. Very mentally difficult. You're trying to sell out a new arena. That was a very hard upsell dynamic too. The fans were patient off the success they had before, but I don't know how patient they'll be this year. So to me, it's just like that lowest test score you toss out at the end of the semester and start over. I mean, because really Barry Trotz's first 3 years were excellent, even with all the COVID messes they went through, but all the winning they did and all the playoff success they had. So the pieces are in place. They just need to be a better 82 game team.
Yeah.
They were clearly built for the playoffs and didn't get there this year, and they had a lot of trouble being that 82 game team. So what piece gets added, I think it'll be more tinkering than big splash. That's my sense at the moment. Gives them more flexibility during the season itself. And Lou rarely signs the giant free agents anyway. So my sense is core stays the same. Some tinkering, maybe a few surprise emerging players in camp, and they're right there in it with their solid defense and very good goaltending from the beginning. I mean, the division's going to be tight. It always is. Teams had great seasons last year with the Islanders not in the mix. They benefited, but that may change. The Flyers should be better with John Tortorella behind the bench. He always improves teams. The Rangers are very good now, but can they sustain it? Does Washington slip a little bit? Does Pittsburgh slip at all? I mean, Carolina's the class of the division, so it's not going to be easy, but cracking the top 4 or 5 is certainly in a better position, getting rid of last year's karma and everything that went with it practically from day one.
Allan Kreda, the Associated Press, also works in the New York Times and other places. Allan, really do appreciate the time you've given us this morning, and can't wait to have you on again real soon.
Yes.
You're welcome. Anytime for you guys.
Thanks a lot, Allan. Take care.
Appreciate it. Again,
you too. Take care.
Allan Kreda from the New York, from the Associated Press and the New York Times. Some great stuff as always. 2 great back-to-back guests there with Brendan Burke coming on, and then
and
Allan
a pinch
jumping
too.
in.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys
hit.
saw on social media, we were supposed to have our friend Tony Stabile sit down with us. Unfortunately, a little under the weather, couldn't make it down. But Allan, pinched hit for him, did a great job, and of course getting Brendan Burke on in-house.
Yeah,
fantastic stuff. So, but we're still rolling here. We got plenty to talk about. Do a little more in depth here on just the latest news with the New York Islanders, and you talk about the coaching staff getting rounded out here. Doug Huda, he was an assistant with the Detroit Red Wings for 6 seasons. Actually played a little stint with the Islanders during the Fisherman era, way back when. And they bring in Brian Wiseman. He was an assistant with Edmonton for 3 years, drafted by the Rangers, had a cup of coffee with the Leafs, so obviously he's a plant.
Naturally.
Yeah. So, I mean, you got him handling the forwards, you got Huda handling the D side, Lane Lambert in the captain's chair now. Yeah. And, I mean, any commentary here on the coaching staff now that it's been completed, Christian?
I mean, I'm just curious to see how everything shakes out. We really won't know too much until we see them on the ice in September, or even if they do rookie camp, we'll get our first real taste of Lane Lambert as the man in charge behind the bench.
And as Allan Kreda said, if it is Barry Trotz 2.0, not the worst thing in the world.
No, I mean, I think that's the interest, and I think everyone we've talked to that we've had on about the move has kind of alluded to the same thing. It's a really interesting situation because of that circumstance alone, is that Lane Lambert is a graduate of the school of Barry Trotz. So, we still will never get the full story of why Barry Trotz was let go, and then to bring in Lane Lambert. The flip side of that is it's great to finally see someone not in the kind of coaching rotation that always gets a job after flaming out somewhere else, land a head coaching job almost immediately. So that was a nice change. It's nice to not see Paul Maurice end up in coaching the Islanders, or Mike Babcock coaching the Islanders,
or coaching the Panthers,
or Claude Julien coaching. You know what I mean? Like the same guys that always get jobs.
Right.
And that's always been the knock on NHL, the NHL coaching carousel, is that those guys will always get jobs because someone's going to hire them again. It's it's the same nonsense over and over again. The same thing with general managers. You got a guy who Peter Chiarelli somehow still, gets a job offers after being, just completely mismanaging a lot of the different things, and that in itself, is insane. So when you look at any other career or job or sport, even in that position, when a guy flames out as bad as some of these others have, or after a while, or after a lack of success for so long, it's like, all right, you're just not going to get a job for a bit. We'll bring someone new. It just doesn't happen in the NHL a lot. So that was the positive, but for that to happen in the Islander situation is a little bit odd too.
It's unique. I mean, we spent the last show a couple of months ago with Ethan Sears talking about it. Just the fact that, I mean, just the shell shock from Barry Trotz being fired and Lane Lambert coming in, and I think, you know, as we said on that episode, I mean, probably the best way to go. And I don't think there's too many Islander fans that'll be upset if Lambert does bring a lot of the same things to the table that Barry Trotz did. I mean, and look, he has some advantages here. He has familiarity with the squad, with the roster, with the system. I don't think he's going to change it too much. He may not change it at all.
Right.
And maybe there's a tweak here or there to try to open up the offense a little bit more. But you know, as Brendan Burke said, I mean, you know, it may not have been the system. It may have just been the personnel.
Which then kind of raised, but we could go on this all day, but it just raised. Then if that's the case, why is the coach the sacrificial lamb in that scenario? But again, you know,
right. We don't have to
gone into that into depth, but
right.
But it raises a lot of interesting questions.
Indeed, and Piero Greco and apparently Mitch Korn, for all intents and purposes, are still on board. They're still around.
Yeah,
so
which is a positive. That's a big thing for the Islanders. Those two have done such a great job, and you know, with molding the goaltending situation that they have, the goaltending success that they have, I should say.
Yes. So let's look at this deal that they swung a little more in depth here. Romanov. Yes, the 13th pick dealt to the Habs for Romanov, and the 98th pick, which was a fourth rounder, in a rare 3-team deal, essentially. The Habs needed that deal to happen in order to make that trade for Kirby Dach from the Blackhawks.
Right.
So
the Blackhawks, who were just blowing everything up too.
Yeah. Interesting things going on in Chicago, but 133 NHL games under his belt, most of any second rounder from the 2018 draft, for whatever that's worth. 22 years old, 6'1", 209 pounds, led the Habs with 225 hits last season, 142 block shots, a PK specialist, and voted best defenseman in the 2019 World Juniors. I robbed all of that information from NewYorkIslanders.com. But there you have it. But look, those are all positive things. Now, you know,
I wonder why I was on the team website.
Right. But we've been very forthcoming with our lack of knowledge on Romanov. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know exactly what he's going to bring to the table just yet. I mean, I basically have what you guys have going, you know, looking at social media, reading whatever pieces and articles about the guy. And, you know, outside of the Islander games against the Habs, I haven't seen too many Canadians games this year. You know what I mean?
Right,
so
exactly.
It's hard for me to give a good assessment other than just kind of look at the content that's out there and you know, read the reactions from people, and then it's been a mixed bag. Some people said the Islanders overpaid with the first. Others say it's a great trade. Others say he's got a lot of upside. He's a promising player, and you know, you can definitely spin a positive in the fact that he is so young. He can now grow with this core of defensemen. When you look at Pelech and Pulock and Dobson, and if he ends up being that perfect guy to round out the top four, then it's looking pretty good. And you and I, you know, talked about before the show, you know, who's going to pair with who. They still got to bring in another guy to potentially pair with Mayfield. And you know, you may see the breaking up of Pelech and Pulock. Maybe you see Noah Dobson with Adam Pelech, and maybe you see Romanov with Pulock to kind of offset the youth, the younger guys, so that they're kind of both with a veteran now, you know, as we were talking about.
Yeah.
So that's something that could happen. And I think the jury's just still out on who's going to be Scott Mayfield's partner. I'm not sold on the fact that Robin Salo's got that job. I
actually forgot about Robin Salo, too, for a moment or two there. Like,
yeah.
I was like, oh, that would actually kind of make sense, but that's also a big question up in the air.
I'd be fine with it, but it wouldn't surprise me if Lou and the coaching staff wanted somebody with a little more experience rather than just kind of tossing them out to the fire and saying, here you go, you're a regular third-pairing defenseman now.
Right.
You know, I think they'd rather bring them along slowly, as they've had with other players. So if I had to bet, I'm sure another defenseman is probably going to be brought in, and I would have to guess, you know, via free agency.
That's the thought. I think going back to Romanov, that everything you said is pretty spot on to what the situation is, right? Like, you know, he's going to be a guy that when you look at that trade, you look at it and go, wow, the 13th overall first round pick, that's a big thing to give up there. But then you look at the draft class and you go, after maybe the fourth pick, which ended up being Shane Wright, who, you know, was by a lot of prognosticators for a while, and looked at as maybe he's the number one overall pick this year and that and this and that. There weren't a lot of names that people knew when they were getting called after that, at that point in the NHL draft. And I think that this year's 13th overall pick, when you're trying to look at a positive spin on all this, you can go, draft class wasn't that deep. Is the guy that you were going to draft from wherever, was he going to be an impact player in a year or two, or even this upcoming season?
Right.
He wasn't. And then you look at the upside on Romanov, and you go, okay, he's young, he's still developing, which means you can kind of mold him into the player that you want him to be or need him to be within the system that Lane Lambert and the players around him are going to need to utilize. You're looking at him and go, there's still so much time and growth in his game. You look at him and go, he's not going to be as expensive possibly as someone else to maybe be an upgrade, or that puck moving defenseman maybe would have cost a little bit more if you were looking for someone who's a top four pairing defenseman instead of maybe that's third pair defenseman. And I think that it kind of evens out. The jury is still going to be out on what this kid does and doesn't do at this point, and I think we're going to start to get a sense of that in training camp and when he finally steps onto the ice. But on paper, it looks like a well enough move that it made sense why you would pull the trigger on a deal at the draft like that.
Yeah, and I think the shock and maybe overall initial even disappointment for Islander fans once the trade was announced, it was like, look, if you're going to deal your first-round pick for something that's going to help now, you're expecting that name to be a little more recognizable, right? Like, it's going to go towards somebody like maybe a JT Miller in Vancouver, right? It's a deal that apparently fell through at the last minute. But so I think it was kind of just like all this build-up. Oh, okay, we have a trade to announce. Okay, Lou's making a deal here, and he deals that first round, and it's all for like, who? Alexander Romanov? Who's that? And
well, we couldn't even say his name correctly.
Right.
We had to get yelled at by Brendan Burke.
Yes, which is perfectly fine. But the thing is, I think it's kind of now just a wait and see. Like, we're not sure yet. Maybe it ends up being a great deal. Maybe Lou ends up looking like a genius. Hopefully he does. I mean, the truth is they need him to. They need him to pan out. They need him to round out that top four. And really change the dynamic of that defense, which again was definitely a part of the reason why they had so many struggles, just transitioning the puck into offense and stuff like that. So, it's
maybe that solves a lot of the scoring issues that you saw, right? Like that was the whole MO of the team for the first 2 years of Barry Trotz, is that their defensemen create the offensive opportunities, and when you don't have a puck moving defenseman like that,
right,
there you go.
Yeah, I mean, and hopefully that's the case. I mean, and Allan Kreda brought up a great point, too, about this team kind of proving that they can be an 82-game team.
Right.
Because you have the two shortened seasons where they got to the conference final. Who knows how things would have went if those were 82-game seasons.
Right,
and,
right.
You even look back, I believe, at that first year under Trotz where, they were so good out of the gate. They built up a lot of points in the earlier parts of the season. They kind of took their foot off the gas.
Right.
And backed in a little bit, and I think I forget if it was 2 years ago or last year. 3 years ago, when had the season extended to 82 games, they might have fell out of playoff contention. I mean, they went on a bad streak towards the end of that season.
That was the COVID season, 2020.
Right. Okay. There you go. So yeah, I mean that's another thing too.
Because the Rangers were right on their heels. They were right behind them.
Yes. So I mean that's why that. It seems like they are going with that emphasis of getting younger legs and stuff like that, because, I mean, it really was apparent. I mean, I remember watching a number of games last season where they just couldn't get out of the zone. Yeah. They just couldn't transition the other way.
I felt like that was not a lot. I think that was at least happened once or twice every game.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a fair point to make.
It was rough some games. There was a lot of bad movement. They couldn't get out of the zone, and even getting through the neutral zone was a big issue for them at times.
Yeah, no question about it. And that's, I don't know. Is Romanov going to be that guy who's going to be able to skate the puck out of the net, make a good first pass, and transition through the neutral zone? Or is there somebody else that they need? I mean, you joke about bringing back former players. You mentioned it a little bit with Brendan. But
Nick Leddy, yeah.
Nick Leddy. I mean, I
have a buddy. Getting on the Nino Niederreiter.
I have a buddy of mine. If he's listening to the show, he probably just cringed by me bringing up his name.
Is it who I think it is?
I'm not sure. My buddy. I don't know.
You have a few of them.
I do have a few of them, but there's one guy in particular who is just not a Nick Leddy fan at all. Like, he wants nothing to do with it. But, I mean, it would not shock me in the least if they brought Nick Leddy back. And whether that's, their first target, or if they look at a couple other guys and they swing and miss, and then they're like, all right, Nick, we'll bring you back. But, like, you can do worse. And we do know that he can transition the puck out of the zone. We do know that he has offensive capabilities, and even if the Leddy Mayfield pairing was not always the prettiest at times, and who's to say that they'd be paired back together? But again, I think he's still only 31. Like, you would think he's like 36 by now with how long he's been in the league, but he started so young with the Blackhawks.
Yep.
And a 31-year-old Nick Leddy, you can do worse than that. I'm not necessarily advocating for it, but I mean, would it shock you? It wouldn't shock me.
I don't hate the idea either. Like, I mean, I also realize I was the one who mentioned it in the first place, but yeah, like if you look at the addition of Romanov, okay, he moves the puck. You had Nick Leddy as like your third pairing defenseman with, dare I say, Scott Mayfield?
Yeah, I mean, sure, pencil him in there for now. Third, and that's another thing too. I mean, Leddy, Mayfield were kind of like a second pairing back then. So
right.
You
there was a little more.
There
was a little more pressure, and maybe that wasn't fair on the whole situation.
Right.
And then you're asking him, he's got to be one of the puck moving defensemen. And then you look at also the fact that if you have two like versatile puck moving defensemen, it takes the pressure off Leddy being the one who has to kind of carry the kind of quarterback the whole that whole procedure as well. So. I mean, it's interesting. You would hope that maybe there's something else up loose sleeve for the defensive side of the ice, but at the same time, you look at the forwards and you go, this team needs to score and this team needs to put pucks in the net. And,
right.
Forwards are probably the biggest. Where if you're going to make a big splash, maybe that's the position you're going to make one at, and then you can go out and just make a small deal for like a Nick Leddy type player.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, there has to be a heavy emphasis on a forward here. And I mean, in a perfect world, the top three, but there has to at least be a top six guy brought in who can just put the puck in the net.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously been the biggest weakness of this team going back from when Barry Trotz even took the team over. And, we now that we're here, we might as well just stick with it. But, I mean, there is a long list of players that are available. Where, like, if Lou doesn't come away with one of these guys, that's when you're like, okay, maybe this guy was sleeping, once July 13th hit. I mean, Forsberg's off the list. Gaudreau is there. I don't think anybody should set their expectations at Gaudreau, but hey, you never know. I mean, Lou Lamoriello brought in a guy named Ilya Kovalchuk once, so you never know, right? And obviously he'd have to do a lot more willing and dealing to make that happen with the money that would be involved. But you set your sights there to start, and there's a lot of other interesting names like Burakovsky and Nichushkin out of Colorado. I imagine they're going to try to hold on to both of those guys.
Claude Giroux.
But either one of those guys would look pretty damn good next to Barzal, I think. Claude Giroux, yeah, and I could totally see that because the Islanders love their veterans. Lou loves his veterans. And if that's a fit, that wouldn't shock me either. And I think Claude Giroux could help the New York Islanders. Now, granted, he's on the wrong side of 30.
Right.
And you don't know how many years he's going to get.
And he's probably going to want a longer-term deal with some security down the line and probably some saying where he goes, any sort of movement in his contract going forward. So that obviously adds a wrinkle to it. Here's a thought, and this is going to be a little crazy or a little out there, of Evgeny Malkin. Apparently contract talks are kind of falling apart between him and the Pittsburgh Penguins, and Malkin's still a 20-plus goal scorer for the most part. And, would that be the worst thing in the world? You had a veteran guy. You talk about bringing a fellow countryman in, Romanov, and a guy that has been a noted Islanders killer for the course of his career. I mean, the Pittsburgh Penguins have just notably made careers out of killing the Islanders, but Evgeny Malkin more so than maybe just about everyone except someone named Sidney Crosby. But obviously he's a center, and the Islanders would have to do some moving around a little bit at that position as well. But I mean, is that the worst thing in the world if you can bring in a guy like Evgeny Malkin who may or may not be looking for, or you could get him on maybe a shorter contract?
Well, it's funny because you say, is that the worst thing in the world? And I think there's so many names in the list where you could literally just say that. Like, is it the worst thing in the world they bring in this guy? There's so many guys like that. And look, I ultimately think Malkin's going to stay with the Penguins. I'd be pretty surprised if he didn't.
It's gotten pretty bad.
Oh, yeah?
It's gotten pretty not. I don't want to use the word contentious, but it certainly doesn't seem like things.
I know he was joking
rosy.
After Letang got his contract. He put a joke on like a social media saying, "Hope I'm not playing against you next year" or something like that.
I don't think that's a joke. There was a story out by Rob Rossi in The Athletic actually about kind of going behind the scenes of where things are, and I think there's a real sense of that Evgeny Malkin thinks that the Penguins don't look at him as a valuable player anymore.
Right.
Because apparently, from the story, it's on The Athletic if you want to read it. Rob Rossi's the author. Maybe it was last year, 2 years ago. Malkin was, before his surgery, old ownership under Mario Lemieux said, we'll take care of you. And obviously, with the new ownership group that has taken over in a very short period of time of the Penguins, it's a much different scenario, and there doesn't seem to be that same urgency to keep a guy who, Evgeny Malkin, I think, wants to retire a Pittsburgh Penguin. He's played his entire career there, and I think that's something that's important to him and Mario Lemieux. But it seems like that's not at the forefront right now for Ron Hextall and that front office. So there could be an opportunity there if you can get him on a I don't want to say a bargain contract, but you can work out a reasonable deal. That would be a pretty big audition for the Islanders.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's one of the greatest guys to lace up the skates in the last 20 years, right? And he's 35, 36. He's very injury prone. I mean, yeah, a healthy Evgeny Malkin for 82 games. Who's not many people are going to say no to that. I mean, I just don't know if him with his injury history and his age, if that's, the first person you look at here. But can you do worse? Absolutely. So I just don't know if that's – I don't think that's where the Islanders are setting their sights. I think that's maybe a consolation prize guy. Again, a guy who can probably help.
Which is incredible when you think about saying – think about that. Think about ever having – thought that sentence would be spoken in any time.
Well, this is the same show that said that Alex Ovechkin wasn't at the top of the list a couple of years ago.
Alex Ovechkin wasn't at the top of the list. I want to be abundantly clear. He's never at the top of the list because he wasn't going anywhere.
And we know Matty Boy remembers that.
I know, but he wasn't going anywhere. That was the thing.
Yeah.
Like everyone and their mother said he wasn't going anywhere.
Well, needless to say, Evgeny Malkin is another interesting name. Vincent Trocheck's a great player. I don't know if he's exactly what the Islanders are looking for because he kind of fits a similar mold to some of the guys they already have. But again, like he's a guy who can play top six, who can play well. I don't know if you're going to play him on the wing. He's more of a center, but I think Trocheck's a guy who could help. Again, if maybe you're not getting the number one guy on your list. Nazem Kadri is another obviously very interesting.
Though.
Oh, yeah, he's going to make bank this offseason. Another one of those guys where if you're bringing in a guy like him, you have to move salary. I mean, you're talking not just moving a Bailey or a Bavilier, but probably both to make it work. Something like same thing with with Johnny Gaudreau. Ricard Raquel is another name out there.
Right. Mike Carver's always been high on Ricard Raquel, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's another good player. He's not Johnny Gaudreau, but he's another good player who could help. I mean, and that's been the Islanders' MO for a long time, where they haven't had that star to ride shotgun, whether it was with John Tavares.
Right. What about Evander Kane?
Evander Kane. He obviously.
Let me. All right.
He played very well with Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers. He was excellent.
Yeah.
He was very good. He played well in the playoffs. So from that standpoint, yes, he looks like a good...
I mean, he's definitely not a Lou guy by any stretch.
Well, that's where I was going. I just don't think he's a guy Lou Lamoriello would bring in. I just don't.
For a number of reasons.
Yeah, and for a franchise that puts so much emphasis on the locker room, I don't think they want that guy going anywhere near that locker room. I mean, unless they really think that they can kind of bring the reins on it. But nobody really has this. Well, apparently it's been working out in Edmonton.
Right, but he was only there for...
Right, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right,
That's like it's like when your buddy has that one kid that's way out of control, and for the first 5 minutes the kid's probably very well behaved, and then they're out of control for the rest of the time you see them.
Right.
It's the same thing with the
Yeah.
He's well behaved for about 5 minutes, and that's how long he was
I don't think
and
that's...
then the rest, the other shoe drops. And
I don't think that's a route.
He's a really talented player. He's a really talented hockey player, but there is a lot of baggage that comes along with him, and it's tough for I think a lot of organizations to justify the baggage that comes along with him. Even you look at a guy like a Tony DeAngelo, where he also comes with a lot of baggage as well, but there seems to be a bit more of a way to, I guess, manage some of that.
Yeah, he's continuing his tour of the Metropolitan Division.
He's
now
back in Philadelphia. I'm pretty sure he's speaking to the media right now, because I saw a tweet put out before that was I guess a direct quote from him, which was. Like I said, I guess he's speaking.
Right. So another name, and funny enough, T-Boyle13 just mentioned it. Andre Palat is going to free agency, so I guess he's not sticking with Tampa. He's another really good player, back-to-back Stanley Cup winner. I mean, again, he's not that top flight, first line winger, but he's a top six guy he's a great player. And he's a guy I'd be happy to have the Islanders have. Now, I don't know. Is that enough? Is he a big enough name or a big enough scorer to where you're satisfied? I don't know. It just becomes goal scoring by committee again, like I was starting to say before. Like that's been this team's MO, where they haven't had that one guy where it's more, okay, you got a couple of, a handful of 20 to 25 goal scorers instead of one, 35 or two 35, 40 goal scorers. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. So it'll, that's kind of what we're looking at if you bring in a guy like Palat, somebody on that level. So, but again, I just don't think the Isles are going to be left holding the bag because there's so many names available. I would like to think Lou's going to, wrangle one of these guys. The question is who and whether or not it's going to be enough.
It is. I mean, that's the thing with these free agency decisions. As you mentioned, there are so many different options out there.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see what the market is set at too, right? Because usually the first couple big names that come off the list, they usually set the market, right? And how is that going to impact what the Islanders are going to do, and how is that going to impact what the rest of the league does, is always something to watch out for, because there's always that one knucklehead GM that goes out and gives someone like Andrew Ladd a massive contract, and then you got to bury him somewhere.
He's a free agent this summer.
You can bring him back?
Bring him back. No, good old number 16, Andrew Ladd.
No, I think they're going to retire that number at the end of the day.
Yes, but probably not for him.
Andrew Ladd. Yes.
Yeah. You think so?
Ladd, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, there you have it, folks. Andrew Ladd.
He'll retire.
Retirement.
Retire 17 for
Christian
Sean
Arnold.
Bates.
Huh?
So retire number 17 for Sean Bates. Put him and Andrew Ladd in the Isles Hall of Fame, and
wow. I don't think that's going to happen, but you never know. Crazier things have happened. And on the defensive side, it's funny. We talked about Nick Leddy a little bit. Another interesting name that's going to be available. Again, I don't know if this is somebody who they're going to have the money for, but John Klingberg is destined to be a free agent.
I'd be interested in him.
I'd definitely be interested.
Again, the problem is the financial aspect. Do you have the money? And as much as the Islanders have a lot more cap space than they have had in the last 2 years, that money is going to it's going to go quickly.
I mean,
it's going to go in the snap of a finger.
You got to figure at least 50% of what they have available right now is going to Noah Dobson. They have $12 million available. Now, whether he gets anywhere between $6 to $8 million or whatever it is, if they go long term, I mean, you're looking at maybe 50% of that.
Yeah.
And then that's enough so right away, I mean, you have to cross guys like Johnny Gaudreau off your list, and a lot of guys on that list. I mean, because those guys are going to make plenty more than $6 million. So that's why I'm saying a guy like Bo and/or Bailey would have to go if they're going to bring in one of those bigger names, and if they're staying with Semyon Varlamov,
which it seems like they are,
right,
for the time being. Who knows? But then again, the question becomes who would be even the backup in that bizarre scenario? Because I mean, like, the Islanders don't have
I'm sure
an NHL caliber backup.
I mean, I didn't even bother looking at a list of free agent names as far as goaltenders go, just out of the assumption that they're bringing Varlamov back. So, I mean, you're looking at that tandem of Sorokin and Varlamov. But, yeah, in that case, you dip into free agency. You pay a guy somewhere between $1 and $2.5 million to be your backup, a more standard backup, and you give Sorokin the reins. I mean, I think we might see that for the first time next year in a long time, where Varlamov's contract is going to expire. Now, who knows? I'm getting way ahead of myself here, but maybe he's a guy who stays
next year.
Right, I know, but maybe he
play this year yet.
Maybe after his contract expires, he's like, I'm going to stick with my buddy and back up Sorokin for a cheaper contract. Maybe he signs for a lesser deal and sticks around. I don't know, but maybe finally Sorokin kind of ends up being like a true number one after this season. And by true, I mean like literally playing like 65 games.
Yes, bulk of the
right. Where there's much less of a split, and you get away from the Leonard Grice, Varlamov Grice, Varlamov Sorokin that we've seen, where it's been a much more even situation. So, we'll see. But I mean, a lot of names out there. We'll see what happens on the free agency front.
Pretty much. By the way, there was a draft. The Islanders did make a couple picks.
That's right, they did. Why don't we talk about those guys? Not till the second round, though.
They're guys. They're players. One's a defenseman, one's a left wing, one's a defenseman, one's a right wing, one's a left wing.
Well, they didn't, no goalies.
No goalies.
So, of course, we get to start with a tough one. Kalliodilius?
I wasn't
We're going with that?
Sure.
Calliodilius? Okay, sure.
I feel
Second
like
round.
That's not even remotely close.
Probably not. 65th overall, defenseman. What you got any info on him?
He's Swedish. Played overseas. You look at. I mean, these guys are gonna make impacts not for quite some time,
if at all.
If at all. From my little understanding of who he is as a player, there's some talk of him having good puck moving skills.
Okay.
Good forechecker, that kind of thing. So that's obviously, I'm sure, the puck moving, especially as a defenseman, was something that caught the Islander scouting staff's eye right off the bat. So I think that would be the big sort of thing to note. He's a fluid skater, good skater, according to McKean's hockey. He has good lateral movement, and he can close the gaps and manage space well. So that's all little defensive nuggets that are helpful for what the Islanders hope to see develop over the course of his career.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. Second round pick, Odilius, perhaps.
That's definitely not his name.
Moving on, third round, Quinn Finley, forward, 78th pick overall. What do you have of Mr. Finley?
He is a 6 foot, 166 pound, 17-year-old forward. He is committed to play at the University of Wisconsin next season. You look at what some of the people have been writing, some of the experts. This is Corey Pronman from The Athletic writing. Finley is an interesting prospect as he possesses legit skill and speed that could translate to higher levels and is one of the younger prospects in this class. He shows, off the rush, he shows he can be a threat and can beat defenders with that speed, which is a good sign for the Islanders down the line. So something to keep an eye out for going forward. Again, he is committed to play at the University of Wisconsin. He spent last season in the USHL with Madison.
Okay, there you go. Quinn Finley. Isaiah George, defenseman, 4th round, 98th overall. This is the pick they got in the Romanov deal.
Yes, very good. 6 foot defender, 996 pounds. He's an 18-year-old playing up for the London Knights in the Ontario Hockey League. This is an interesting one. Chris Peters, who's a guru when it comes to the NHL draft and these
previous
prospects. Previous guest on the show. He wrote a little bit something about Isaiah George and that he goes to the Islanders. He was one of the best players on his list at number 75 on his list, and you said he went 94th overall? 98th overall. So that's a bit of a steal if he pans out. There's a lot of potential there, he writes. As he matures and gets more ice time, he could be a real value add. Islander fans and the organization just needs patience going forward. So he's a mobile defenseman, according to Corey Pronman from The Athletic, who plays well in his own end of the rink due to his strong gap control and compete level. He can kill a lot of rushes and break up plays. He shows flashes of skill with the puck as well.
You said kill a lot of rushes?
Yeah.
It sounded like you said kill a lot of Russians. I was like, oh, my God.
I mean, he could do that, too. He kills a lot of rushes. And he's got a hard shot.
Okay.
There you go.
Great. And rounding out the draft, 2 forwards, Matthew Maggio, 5th round, 142nd overall, and Dalen Kefler?
Both Canadian Hockey League prospects. One's a right wing. He comes in at 5'10", a bit on the smaller side at 186, playing for Windsor last season. Looking at his numbers from the OHL in his season with the Windsor Spitfire, he put up 38 goals and 47 assists for 85 points in 66 games in the OHL.
Okay.
And then, of course, you had Mr. Dalen Kufler?
Yeah, exactly.
At 20 years old, he comes in at 6'2", 192. He played for the Kamloops Blazers of the Western Hockey League, putting up 38 goals and 21 assists in 65 games in the WHL. He also played 17 playoff games with them as well, scoring 10 goals and 17 assists. Or 7 assists, I'm sorry. It's 10 goals, 7 assists.
Okay, well, we'll see how these guys pan out.
Had tipped Stefan Rosner for that from NY.
Oh, excellent. Very nice. Yeah, he was up there in Montreal. Did a great job.
He was, yeah. He was enjoying himself.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you not going to have fun in the province, in the city of Montreal?
In the province of Montreal?
The province is Quebec, yeah. The city of Montreal. Yeah.
You sure about that?
I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty confident. No, I'm actually pretty confident.
So that's a roundup of the Islanders draft selections.
Just hopefully we hear their names again.
Something of note, obviously the biggest move, and we talked about it from the draft, was of course the trade for Alexander Romanov.
Nice job.
Romanov.
Yes.
That's what he said. Okay.
Yeah.
Romanov.
Yes.
Like Ray Romano, but off.
Nailed it.
Romano.
Yeah, you killed that, man. That was really good. All right, so the last thing I want to touch on before we break for the hero is just, you had a couple of names that might have been on your target list. As far as the trade goes, you have Fiala, who ends up leaving Minnesota. He goes to the Los Angeles Kings.
Right.
You have DeBrincat, who ends up getting traded to Ottawa, of all teams. Kind of didn't see that coming.
You mean?
What's that?
DeBrincat? What did you say?
DeBrincat.
Oh.
Is it? That's how I pronounced
Okay.
it. Am I wrong with that one too? I
Probably,
might
I
be.
don't know.
These are very tough names they're giving us today. But look, two very high-scoring forwards young high-scoring forwards that I'm sure a lot of people.
You're right.
have
I
on
just
their
call
list.
him DeBrincat.
DeBrincat?
Yeah.
I wish it was
That'd be
DeBrincat.
cool.
But
He probably wishes it was DeBrincat too.
Yeah, he probably does. Of the Bearcat? Yeah. So anyway, these guys end up going to teams not named the New York Islanders, and you look at the returns, and there was some grumbles in Islander country over the fact, Lou could have beat that deal. What happened there, sleeping at the wheel again. Fiala goes for the 19th overall pick and top D prospect Brock Faber. He was a second-round pick, 45th overall when he was drafted. Now, look, a lot of people just like to think that, a general manager steps up to another guy and says, here's my offering, and that they're just automatically going to take it. There's just a lot more that goes into it. It depends on what the team you're dealing with is looking for. That whole two to tango thing, right? Like Lou Lamoriello could have been like, yeah, okay, here's our first, here's Atu Ratu, and here's Willem Dufour or whatever it is. But it doesn't mean the guy on the other end likes that deal more than the one he ends up going with.
Or even, I think the understanding too is that if they came to him and said, we'll take, the 13th overall pick and we'll take a prospect. Let's just throw in Dufour just for the sake of throwing it in. You also have to understand Lou Lamoriello might view Dufour in a much and as a coveted prospect, and he goes, that's a guy I could see playing for this organization, having a big role, in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the line, 2, 3, 4, let's say, where it doesn't make sense for them to go for short-term success when they have a piece that could really be a long-term success prospect.
Right.
And I think that's the other understanding too, like the value of what the Islanders see in Dufour or. Why can't I think of his name right now, even though you just said it? It wasn't Dufour either. It was...
Ratu?
Ratu.
Yeah.
Atu Ratu. You know what I mean? Like, people have to understand, too, that that's a part of the consideration. Or maybe these teams don't value them. Maybe he did put him in trade and they go, I don't really want that. Or they look at the Islanders...
Right. You can't just assume that... You can't assume that other general managers are looking at the Islanders prospect pool going, oh, yeah, I like this guy or I want this... You know what I mean? Just because... And look... Fans of their own teams usually overvalue their own players and prospects. That just happens all the time. So even if you think William Dufour is the next coming now that he had this MVP season,
right?
It doesn't mean that that's how he's viewed around the rest of the league, or whether he's a guy, who another team wants to bring into their system. So to just say, the Islanders could have beat that deal. Where was Lou? Why didn't it happen? We don't know what happened. We don't know what he offered, if he offered anything, and whether it was a serious consideration on the other side of things. And as far as DeBrincat goes, look, it was the number 7 overall and a second and a third, and number 7, even though it's only 6 spots away from 13, is of much higher value than the 13th overall pick. Yeah. And that's probably where the emphasis was there. As you said, Chicago's rebuilding.
Yes.
Right?
Chicago's in a much different state than what the it's exactly where you would look at some trades that the Islanders make years ago and you go, why are they doing that? Why are they doing this? It's the same conversation. The Blackhawks are looking at that and going, this is a better deal for us in our future, and especially bringing back a prospect that could potentially have an impact a couple years down the line. Again, I think that may have been if there was even a conversation in the first place.
Right, exactly.
Which we're speculating there was. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe Lou picked up the phone and went, hey, what's up, brah? And you're like, what's up, brah? And I'm like, he's like, the Bearcat. He's like, that's not a player on a team. And then they hung up the phone.
That is exactly what would have happened. Right.
But that's the serious situation of the matter is we don't know if he actually called and said, listen, we're interested in DeBrincat. What would you take to bring him to Long Island? And they said, you really don't have the pieces that we're looking for at the moment.
Right, and I bet that happened a lot because they don't have a lot of pieces.
Not the prospect.
And
if you're going after teams that are rebuilding or in these you need to have those prospects.
And because Lou has such limited assets, he's going to have to make sure that when he does unload them, it's for the right piece and it's for the right player. Now I'm not saying Fiala or DeBrincat wouldn't have helped. I would have loved to get either one of those guys.
I would have been more intrigued by DeBrincat.
Okay.
Than Fiala.
Okay. Yes, we're both doing great with the names today.
Yeah.
But look, it didn't happen. There's still a lot of summer to go. We still got to hit free agency. So, I'm not ready to give Lou the F grade yet.
No, I mean we're not even into free.
Exactly.
I mean, giving an a bad grade at this point in the off season would be like giving someone an F a third of the way through their semester. Like it wouldn't make a lot of sense because there's so much more to do and so much more that that more time that Lamoriello has that's not a fair assessment either of his general managerial style, right? Like, I mean, I've been pretty hard on Lou Lamoriello, you'd say, and
sure. And I'm an apologist, so
right,
it's a good counterbalance.
You love the guy, and you think he should be the king, and but the point is, even I can say that's not fair to say like, oh, it's been this offseason been terrible. Well, the offseason barely started. You know what I mean? Like, we just got through the draft. We just got through the Stanley Cup final. We just got through kind of for the organization really starting to put the piece together of what this team's going to look like next season.
Right.
That'd be unfair to do that.
It would. What a rational thought from you, Christian Arnold.
I have a lot of rational
thoughts. Nice job. So, Alex Stepanek. Nice.
If only he came, but the nicknames are endless. The name gaffes are endless, guys.
And T-Boyle13 says, what about Wallstrom in a first for the Cat? Yeah, I mean, sure, but I mean, maybe Lou Lamoriello doesn't want to unload Oliver Wallstrom. Maybe he still thinks that he fits here, and he's going to turn into the player we all hope he does.
Well, I think that's the thing too. Like some of those guys that you're looking at and go, oh, this is the way they played under Barry Trotz. Does that change a little under Lane Lambert?
Right.
So would you want to be, unless it's like, Sidney Crosby and the next coming of Sidney Crosby coming back to you, is Oliver Wallstrom a guy that you really want to include in a trade package right now?
Right.
That's someone that, for the most part, the organization has thought of this is a kid that's going to be your huge impact player going forward.
Yeah, because the truth is Oliver Wallstrom could end up one day putting the numbers that these guys like Fiala and DeBrincat are putting up now. And maybe that's what he sees. I mean, we just don't know. And that's, all we can do is speculate, as we always seem to say.
All we do anyway.
On this show, yeah. But look, they didn't work out. There's plenty of summer to go. We'll see how free agency goes. And yeah, look, I mean, if we end up in a situation where we get to September and, the best free agent signing they made was Zdeno Chara, that's when it's a problem. So let's wait and see. A couple of big names they didn't get, but there's still some out there.
There's time is what we're saying.
There is time. There is time.
Be patient.
So once again, folks, I want to thank you all for hanging out with us on this beautiful Saturday afternoon here at Blue Line Deli and Bagels at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY and your favorite podcast providers. We're going to take one more break. When we come back, we're going to do a Hero of the Week. Why not?
All right.
Okay.
I'm curious to see what the hero is.
We'll find out.
Let alone the player that we pick.
We're going to find out. We'll be right back, folks.
Customer service is the backbone of any great business, and reliable telecommunication is essential to keeping your client base happy. Introducing Thai Technology, a low-cost, flexible internet phone service founded on the idea that every customer deserves exceptional service while providing simple setup and management and easy integration to clients across the country. Thai Technology will not only create a custom solution tailored to your specific needs, but will partner with you to provide a competitive edge to you and your clients. And if you need support, you won't be routed to an automated call center in another country. You'll get a live representative that had a personal hand in building your account. So Islander fans, if your business is looking for a change from companies like Spectrum, Verizon, or Optimum, Thai Technology is offering 3 free months of service for any of its affordable packages. Just call 516-856-7800. That's 516-856-7800. Or visit them on the web at ThaiTechnology.com. That's Thai, T-I-E Technology.com. Thai Technology, the right choice for your internet phone service.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you hear this song, that means it's time for the Hero of the Week, brought to you by the Blue Line Deli and Bagels half price hero, which This week is the Poke Check, featuring roast beef, turkey, ham, Swiss and American, lettuce and tomato, and mayo on a Hero. Get it for half price all week, starting tomorrow, that is Sunday, through next week. Stop on in, mention Hockey Night in New York, and get half off the Poke Check. So, ladies and gentlemen, we do this little segment here, and usually it's a little easier to pick a hero when they're playing hockey. But they haven't been playing hockey. They haven't. So we really reached far on this one, and we have a co-hero of the week here. Very easy, very simple, and he really did a great job getting traded to the New York Islanders. And that is Alexander Romanov. I mean, what else do we got here?
Listen, I'm sure he packed his bag quite well.
Yeah, packed his bag. He's going to start wearing orange and blue. And look, as we very bluntly stated, we don't know much about this man, but I am looking forward to seeing this guy in camp and seeing what he brings to the table and see who he gets paired up with in camp and just how long it takes for him to flourish as a New York Islander. So there it is, folks. Your co-hero of the week, Alexander Romanov. Ray Romanov. That's your fault.
I know.
That's your fault.
That's fine. That was my fault.
Oh, and T Boyle 13, what a gentleman. Donald, Sean, and Christian are always heroes.
That's true. We should have made ourselves.
That's really
heroes.
nice. I mean,
could have made Donnie the hero for setting this all up and giving us great hospitality and making great sandwiches. And,
that's true. We've done it before. I mean, we've certainly given him his due. I invited him to be on the show. He said, "No, thanks. I'm not really interested."
Today?
Yeah, no. I did ask him if he wanted to come and talk about the Deli, but he doesn't. So he's too. He's a busy man. There's a lot going on here, man.
It's a busy day.
A lot of people coming in.
Getting their sandos before they head to the beach.
Donnie's not just the president. He's also a member in that. He owns the place, but he's also cooking the food back there, man. He's doing a great job. He's not just running around pointing fingers. Yeah. He's getting the work done. Ow. Donnie Bagels.
Yeah.
Legend. See, there you go. See, he's an unofficial hero. There you go.
I mean, we could have just made him the hero.
We could have. We did. So there you go.
I mean, if Donnie had a little longer hair, I guess, and maybe he grew out the chin patch
and took the glasses off. Yeah, maybe.
Could look a little like Donald Rousler.
A little bit.
Owner and proprietor of the Blue Line Deli in Huntington, New York.
Yes.
Jericho Turnpike.
Yes. Hey, look, all good things. He's in UBS Arena now. He's got the new location in East Islip.
People are going to
remember
confuse him that he's
not
the
Central Islip.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, all good stuff here at Blue Line.
Donnie's going to show up. Be like, where'd your hair go, Alexander Romanov?
Romanov. See, you did it again. So there you go, folks. The hero of the week, the Poke Check. Stop on in to Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Sweet. Mention Hockey Night in New York, and you get it for half off. What a deal.
Fantastic.
What a deal. So, Christian, I mean, for fun, we'll do a very short segment of what's on tap.
Oh, okay.
For fun.
I don't even let it.
Do a short segment.
And now, it's time for What's on Tap.
Nothing.
Brought to you by RJ Daniels, American Bar.
Shortest What's on Tap segment ever. There's nothing on tap. Let's move on.
Free agency, July 13th.
Okay.
It's on tap. And then more summer, and then beaches, and then training camp. I mean, that's pretty much it.
Golf? Any golf?
I mean, I would assume that there's going to be golf. I mean, there was, probably golf as soon as those guys stepped off the ice.
Probably.
I've played a couple of rounds since the summer started. Some awful rounds, but I played.
Oh, well, good for you.
You got any golf in there, buddy?
I have not.
No? Okay.
I have not, which is unfortunate, because I do like to play every once in a while.
Still plenty of summer left.
That's true.
A lot of beautiful courses here on Long Island.
That is true. Yes.
As I've come to learn.
Well, I'm glad you learned that.
I have. I mean, it's about time. It's like a rite of passage. You live on Long Island, you got to play golf. So there you have it, folks.
What's on tap?
That's it.
Nothing.
That's it.
Still nothing.
That was What's on Tap.
It was nothing.
Brought to you by RJ Daniels, American Bar and Grill.
And with that, we're going right into...
It's time for Questions Brewing, brought to you by Oyster Bay Brewing Company, Long Island's Gold Coast Brewery.
I don't know. The guy who does the voices for all this stuff kind of sounds like a tool.
I don't know. He did such a good job with that. Incredible. I mean, I bet he's very good looking, too.
I doubt it.
I bet he's very good looking.
Repulsive. The word is repulsive you're looking for. And
Questions Brewing, brought to you by Oyster Bay Brewing Company and their delicious summer peach. It's summertime. Want to go down to Oyster Bay Brewing Company and get yourself a summer peach. All right.
I mean, that could be taken. I was just.
Oh, come on.
Question Brewing. Care to speculate about what the deal was with Vancouver for JT Miller? According to Chris Botta, it was deemed credible by multiple sources.
Yeah, apparently that's the thing that almost happened. We talked about it earlier, and I mean, I believe it. I'm sure that it sounds like they did have something in place, and the question is just why and how it fell apart. Was it because Romanov became available and Lou was like, I want that guy instead? Or did discussions just break down between the Canucks and the Islanders? And you're always going to wonder what else is part of that. I mean, was it just the first?
I think
for
it was.
JT Miller?
I think it was
Probably not.
just the 13th overall pick.
That's it?
I think so.
Really?
Maybe it was like the 13th pick and maybe a second or third round pick. I don't think the package was that huge, and I think when it came down to it, maybe it was as usually it tends to be with these situations. The truth is somewhere in the middle, right? Maybe it wasn't necessarily that the deal totally fell apart, but part of it was that the deal fell apart because in part the package that Montreal had offered was a little bit better. You get Romanov, and you get another fourth round pick. A little extra there to kind of help build that prospect.
Yeah, and I think what might make it a head scratcher for Islander fans, if Lou was the guy who made the decision here, was it JT Miller as
the general manager?
Well, I'm saying if it wasn't the Canucks that pulled out.
Certainly it wasn't Joe Schmo on Twitter who made the decision.
No, but it might have been the Vancouver Canucks who decided to pull out of the deal.
Kidding.
Okay. So
knucklehead.
Yeah, let me reel this back in. So, I mean, the name is more recognized. JT, okay, I know who that is. I know the points that he's put up. That makes sense. That's a guy, I would have liked in the team. And then you go from that to Romanov. You're like, really? You know what I mean? Right. I think that might be what has something that might have Islander fans scratching their heads, being like, you had this deal for a forward, a guy who could have helped them out, and then you go the other way, and you get this guy who's a little of a lesser known quantity, But
I get that.
I don't know, man. I mean, we'll never know. It's one of those other things that we'll never know about. But JT Miller, apparently very close to being a New York Islander.
Question brewing: do you see Bolduc as a trade chip, or is he ready to make the Islanders lineup? 2.
I do not think he's ready to make the Islanders lineup, and I think that he very well. Look, I'm sure he's on the table. If Lou is negotiating with somebody for a trade, and they ask about Bolduc, he'll say, yeah, he's available, and they work something out. I'm certainly sure he's a guy Lou's willing to trade. The question is, how much value does he have right now? I mean, he's going to be at this point an ad in a deal. He's not going to be the main part of a trade package, at least for anybody substantial or anybody that Islander fans are probably dreaming about, right?
No, it's part of a bigger package where it's like Bolduc, Wallstrom, this guy, and you know what I mean. It's going to take more than just him. He's not the trade piece that is going to be able to bring back something that's a massive return. Maybe he's the guy that you trade him in a deal that you get like another pick or something like that.
Yeah, and it's even going to be tougher to make that trade because that first is gone now. That first has been used on somebody, so that's not even a chip anymore. Where if you're making a deal for anybody who's really going to help this team, I think now, outside of an Oliver Wahlstrom that who knows if he's even available, a guy like Anthony Beauvillier might be their best trade chip now.
He is.
Still young, 20-something, has potential, has shown that he can be a scorer in this league, but hasn't figured out on a consistent basis. He's probably their best trade chip, and it probably does make Lou's job a little harder in trying to find the trade partner to get in, bring somebody in that Islander fans might be hoping for. That doesn't mean it's an impossibility, but, now with that first-round pick off the table, it's going to be a little bit of a harder job. So, it's going to be interesting to see if and what Lou Lamoriello swings here.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Question brewing: is there a goalie that is ready to step in the event of an injury?
No. I mean, nobody who's going to be we're going to be excited about it. Is Skarich going to be ready to get called up if an injury happens? Maybe.
I thought it was Skarek.
It could be. It's spelled Skarek, but I might be. I think it's pronounced Skarich, but don't quote me on that. As you've learned throughout the course of this episode, our name pronunciations aren't the best, right? Or good at all. Yeah, or accurate. Yeah, but yeah, I think he's going to just be down at Bridgeport. I'll be interested to see if they bring Corey Schneider back to continue to back him up.
That was going to be my. I mean, even though they seemed like they were they look at Corey Schneider and go, "We will do anything to not have you play in an Islander jersey." I mean, I think he got one game in an NHL jersey.
Oh yeah, look, not no disrespect to him at all.
No.
But
I don't mean that.
But
at
he
all.
was at that point just they needed a body to sit on the bench while somebody else started.
Yeah. But that's the point. They went to great lengths to not have.
Right.
Oh, thank you very much. They're bringing over fresh refreshments.
Oh, look at this!
All service deli. I love
Much
it.
appreciated.
Thank you
Blue
very
Line
much.
Deli, the best in the biz. Say hi to the camera, Danny.
Perfect.
So that's all right. That's all right, bud. Much appreciated. So anyway, Corey Schneider.
I mean, I could see him coming back because, like, I was just looking at his his contract history, and he's signed like the past 2 seasons. He's signed league minimum deals to come and try and work his way back into the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I can't imagine there are too many other teams knocking down his door to be like, "Hey, like, come play goaltender."
Yeah, look.
And I mean that in the most respectful.
Here's the good news, and this is if one of the
if it makes Corey Schneider feeling better, no one's knocking down my door to play goaltender either. At the
that's true. That's very true, or for any other reason. But
that's also very true. No, that's 100% true. Unfortunately.
But look, the good news is if either one of the Islanders goaltenders do get injured in this hypothetical scenario that's been raised here on Questions Brewing,
brought to you by Oyster Bay Brewing Company,
the other guy is gonna
Peach.
be absolutely fine.
He's gonna be a Summer
like,
Peach.
Yes, he's going to be a Summer Peach. But I mean, I have no problem. I have no problem with Ilya or Semyon being between the pipes. That's the beauty of the situation they have.
And then my prediction would be that Schneider's coming back next year on another league minimum. I don't think Scarich,
either
whatever.
One. Take your pick.
Scariff is going to be an NHL goaltender anytime soon. He's the Bridgeport goaltender, and I think that's kind of the role that career AHL goaltender.
And if Corey Schneider's still willing to ride the bus, then he'll sign another contract and back him up.
Jordan rode the bus.
Jordan rode the bus.
Michael Jordan.
Oh yeah, MJ. Yeah, cool. Michael Jordan.
If you can ride the bus, anyone can ride the bus. That's
Yeah. No, I got you. All right. So. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's a huge concern. No. The whole third string. But they'll be fine.
They will be fine.
Yeah.
Last question, Bruin, real quick here. Any thoughts yet on revising the Hockey Night in New York intro? Will the Church of Trotz become the Temple of Lane?
Temple of Lane. I like that. There have been some behind the scenes. Think tanks about what to do about the intro now that Barry Trotz is no longer with the Islanders. I mean, look, you can still go with it. I mean, you could have been born in the Church of Trotz when he was coaching the team. I mean, technically, but yeah, we might see a new intro. We might see something a little different. We got some stuff up our sleeves for next season.
All right, I like it.
Yeah, we'll see. I like it though. I like the question. You're paying attention. That's good stuff. So that's it. That's it for Questions Brewing.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was Questions Brewing, brought to you by Oyster Bay Brewing Company, Long Island's Gold Coast Brewery.
I'd really like if one of the things that changes is the voiceover guy for these commercials.
Oh, there's just going to be more of it.
The person who does
there's going to be more of it.
The person who does the intro voice is incredible. The person who does the other stuff is god awful.
I don't know. I think he does a pretty good job. I think he talks really well. He's a good talker. Yeah.
He talks well.
Yeah, he talks really well. So, just a couple more things before we wrap up here. The NHL schedule was released. The Islanders will not be opening this season with a 13-game road trip. They will actually be opening with a 4-game homestand starting against the Florida Panthers on October 13th. So, yes, as we discussed before with Brendan, the first season of normal in a long time.
Yeah.
There's no worries about an arena being finished or anything like that. Hopefully there's no COVID issues this season. 82 games. They're starting closer and closer to the start of October. I mean, usually in years past when things were, again, normal, you had like the first week in October, right? Like the 4th or the 5th was usually the start of the season. So we got
it's
the
close
13th.
enough. It would have been the 7th or the 8th.
Okay, so there you go.
A week off, not even.
Yeah, so we're back to normal, and they've already announced it next summer. They're going back to July 1 for free agency.
Right.
So we'll see the draft again, probably that last weekend or two in June, and all will be right in the world. So there you go, Florida Panthers opening game the 13th at UBS Arena, and that new parking garage it's done, actually. It's done. It's being used, but that'll be the first time it'll be used for the Islanders.
That'll be exciting. Although I'm looking at real quick at the start times right now. 7:30 start time, not going away during the week.
Okay, I figured that would be the case.
People didn't like that. I thought maybe they'd try and do away with it.
Well, yeah, but there's probably for the same amount of people that didn't like it, there was probably people that did like it. It's like, oh, great, I have enough time to get home from work so I can catch the start of the game. You know?
I know, but it isn't I don't know.
You can't please everybody. And they got people working behind the scenes that probably assessed that a 7:30 start time was going to be better than 7 o'clock.
I mean, it made sense last
train
year.
Commuters or whatever it is.
Okay.
Sorry to put you down there, buddy. But,
I don't know.
You know 7:30 starts are back. And they are closing the season at home as well against the Montreal Canadiens, funny enough. So that will be, I think that's April 12th.
Your Romanov revenge tour.
Right. Well, they'll probably have a game or two against them before that. But, yes, April 12th. That's
why I said Romanov revenge tour.
Tour,
the
right.
End of the tour.
Encompassing more than one game.
Yes.
Got it. So April 12th versus the Habs. They'll be closing. They're opening the season home and closing the season at home. I counted 15 back-to-backs this season. It's quite a few. That's a healthy amount of back-to-back games.
A healthy amount of back-to-back. Bet you they're all playing them at 7:30 too.
They might be. To some fans' dismay, apparently. So there's the schedule. And here you go. T-Boyle 13. With traffic, it's a great start time. So he appreciates the 7:30. See? Look at that. So just want to go around the league with some interesting deals that happen either at or around the draft. Predators getting Ryan McDonough from Tampa for Philip Myers. Yeah.
That was
Grant Mishmash.
Yeah.
What a great name.
And that was not the only reason I found that trade interesting, but the fact that the Tampa Bay Lightning basically sang McDonough's praises through the playoffs, especially in that series against the Rangers. Obviously, because he, had played for New York and all the history there too. But it was kind of interesting to see a guy that even as respected and obviously someone that they valued deeply in the Tampa Bay locker room was still dealt at the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, look, we're seeing a small dismantling of the Tampa Bay Lightning right now with, again, apparently Palat going to free agency and McDonough being traded. It'd be really nice not to bump into the Lightning in the conference finals this coming season if the Islanders could get there. I mean, but it looks like the reign may finally be over. Because, I mean, the fact that they were able to keep it to the 3 Stanley Cup finals in a row in this day and age is very impressive. It's still not a dynasty
with
to
the
anyone
majority
out there that think it's a damn dynasty.
With the majority of the core still intact.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's impressive in itself.
It's impressive not only that, but the fact that they were able to completely replace their third line and not miss a beat, essentially. No,
100%. I think the Islanders 4 cups and, 19 playoff series, 19 straight playoff series wins. I think that's going to be safe for the remaining history of time because it's just such an impossible feat to do. And it was an impossible feat to do at any point in the history of hockey, but now in the modern age, when you look at the salary cap, when you look at the player movement that happens on a regular basis like that, like it does in the NHL now, it's just not something that's ever going to be replicated.
Yeah, Tampa may be the team to ever get the closest, and who knew that Pat Maroon would be the biggest threat to the Islanders 4-cup dynasty? Pat Maroon by himself, what a story, right? The cup with the Blues, 2 with the Lightning, and almost got the 4th. Almost matched the Islanders with 4 straight Stanley Cups in 2 different sweaters.
Very impressive.
Yeah, very impressive. So the Colorado Avalanche, after the Stanley Cup win, wheeling and dealing, gets Georgiev from the New York Rangers for 2/3 and a 5th.
Right.
Interesting deal.
Listen, I think they wanted to kind of solidify some goaltending depth there, and Georgiev obviously playing behind, or I guess I should say with Igor Shesterkin was an interesting, that was an interesting mix and match, and he had some success. You look at the way he played. Obviously, he played well against certain teams. I don't think he played quite particularly well up until maybe last year against the Islanders, but it's a good depth. Adds a little depth to the goaltending position for the Colorado Avalanche, who are trying to now replicate what the Tampa Bay Lightning did for the last 3-4 years.
Right. Another goaltender on the move, Mrazek, dealt from the Leafs to the Hawks for a 2nd-round pick, perhaps paving the way for Darcy Kemper to go over the Leafs, maybe?
Possibly.
Maybe they got their target set on him?
I could kind of see it. See, like, the pieces are there, right? Like, the the building blocks of those particular moves certainly seem to indicate that something is up.
Right. Zach Cassian and picks banished to Arizona for the 32nd overall pick. Poor guy going to the Yotes. He's going to play on a college campus this year.
Yeah, are we going to make the trip out there or what?
Buddy, I'm in. Let's take a look at that schedule.
I already know what it is. I'm pretty sure it's December or January. I'm going to look it up now.
Okay.
That is a great time to go to Arizona, get away from the snow and the cold.
I would love it. I'm in.
And see what an NHL game is like at a college hockey facility.
I would love to be a part of it. You know what else is happening this year, buddy? Islanders are playing in Vegas on a Saturday. I think December 17th. Saturday against the Vegas Golden Knights. You might want to circle that one on your calendar.
That might be the swing because they
make a little trip out to the desert.
That's what they do. That's what they did last year.
Look,
it's
buddy,
Vegas,
back to back.
Vegas and Arizona.
Might have to talk about that.
I'm 100% in right now.
Wow.
I don't even need to talk about it.
Okay. Well, we might have a little Hockey Night in New York road trip, buddy.
I mean, I'm in.
December. Back to back against the Yotes in Vegas. Yeah, I've been dying to get in a T-Mobile Arena, man. I heard it's a great spot, and I hear Vegas is a pretty decent town to hang out in too. So that might be fun.
Oh, okay.
All right. So moving on here, Red Wings. Ville Husso from the Blues for a third round. Another goaltender on the move. A lot of musical chairs
here.
here.
Summer of goaltenders.
Apparently.
Summer of Georgievs.
And the New Jersey Devils get Vanacek from the Caps for a second rounder. The Devils are going to be a pain in the ass.
The Devils are it's nice to.
They're building a team over there.
It's nice to see them with a little stability in the goaltending position. It's been like a carousel. It seems like the last couple of years, and it should solidify, at least kind of give them a little stability in that position, and they're going to be interesting. They're an interesting team. They've always kind of been an interesting team because they seem like every year they seem like they could be really good, and they kind of don't meet that expectation, or one or two things go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're playoff ready just yet, especially with the teams that you're looking at in the Eastern Conference and the Metro, but they're not going to be an easy out. They have a good young team. Like those players are only going to get better. They got Dougie Hamilton back there on the back end. I mean, they're going to be a tough team to beat. And the Flyers, as we mentioned before, get Tony DeAngelo and a 7th rounder for a 2nd, a 4th, and a conditional 3rd. I do not know what the conditions are on that 3rd, but that's the deal. Tony DeAngelo, Philadelphia Flyers.
Yes.
There you have it, folks. Those are your trades of note.
Trades of note.
Surrounding the NHL draft. And now we look ahead to free agency.
We already did. We spent the whole show talking about free agency.
No, that was the general not like right now. I mean, like that's the next. That's what's on tap. Coming up this summer.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Gotcha. So I'm pretty satisfied with where we're at here. You got anything else to add,
No,
buddy?
it's funny, too. You look at the situation, by the way, we're talking about goaltenders. You look at the situation with Ilya Sorokin and the concern or growing concern with Russian players being able to get back from the country of Russia once the season starts. And it is interesting, sort of the tight-lipped nature that the Islanders have had around the whereabouts of Ilya Sorokin, even though I think he's essentially confirmed it himself via social media pictures or pictures that were posted of him on social media still in Russia. But I know from reporting from AM New York, I know from reporting from Kevin Kurz and Joe Pantorno from AM New York, that the Islanders have been tight-lipped on where Sorokin is, and his agent hasn't really been willing to discuss where his whereabouts are. I know that it was reported that Igor Shesterkin didn't go back to Russia. That he's going to be spending the summer in the United States, and there was obviously some concern around what's his face from the Minnesota Wild.
Old what's his shits?
No,
Kirill Kaprizov.
Yes, yeah. There was some concern around his whereabouts as well, which have seemed to have cleared up since those initial reports that he was in Russia. That they were trying to get him out of Russia, and so things have seemed to at least become a little more like he apparently he is in Russia, but things are fine. So
okay,
but there is certainly a sense of a growing concern about getting Russian players back to the United States for the start of the season after what had happened with the Philadelphia Flyers prospect.
Well, hopefully they're working on that now, because we don't need Ilya Sorokin to be trapped in Russia. That would be a problem. I mean, look, Semyon Varlamov could probably handle things, but I'd much rather Sorokin making it back.
Well,
you know?
Semyon Varlamov's in Texas. He's apparently summers in Texas.
Yeah, I read that too.
Yeah.
So he's fine. Yeah. He's cool. So he's ready to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just gotta hope that they get Sorokin back. Smuggle him on a plane. Get him back. Whatever you got to do.
But yeah,
whatever you got to do.
I did just want to mention that as well. I realized we didn't even get to that part, and that was such a pretty big hockey story for the last week or so.
Yeah, it's definitely concerning. There's no doubt about
the
it.
whereabouts of Ilya Sorokin.
Does anyone have Chuck Norris on speed dial? Delta Force has been activated for a rescue. Mike, 4652Co, bringing the jokes, as he always does. Good stuff. So, Christian, I mean, you know, a little rough in the beginning, some tough technical difficulties, but, you know, nice to get back in the chairs.
Technical difficulties.
Nice to get back behind the mics again and, you know, talk a little Islander hockey.
Yeah.
So, look, we got July 1 being July 13th this year. Yeah. And we're going to see what happens, and the expectation is we're going to fire up a show after that to recap what happened. I would have to think that Lou does something that will be worthy of chatting about. So, are you okay? Oh, you spit out your drink, buddy?
I don't know why I found that funny, but yes.
So, yeah, folks, we'll be back after free agency. In an ideal world, that following Sunday night. But either way, we'll work something out. We'll figure something out. We will be back. And then we will probably sneak a show or two in over the summer. We have something brewing. We have a very special guest we're working on bringing in that hopefully will be around August time. We'll keep you guys updated on that. And then, of course, we'll be back for training camp and the start of next season. So, folks, with that, I want to thank you all for joining us here at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. And, of course, your favorite podcast providers. Huge thanks to Islanders play-by-play man Brendan Burke, the great Brendan Burke from MSG Networks. And, of course, Allan Kreda from the Associated Press and the New York Times. Yep. Huge thanks to our presenting sponsor, RJ Daniels American Bar and Grill, located at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center, the best place to catch the Isles. They also have live music, comedy nights, trivia, late night bar scene. They have it all. And of course, a huge thanks to our friends here at Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Thanks for having us. Thanks for taking care of us. Fantastic stuff. They are an official partner of the New York Islanders and the greatest deli around. Huge thanks to Ty Technology, a voice-over IP company providing phone services for businesses across the country. Check them out at tytechnology.com for all your telecom needs, or give them a call at 516-856-7800 and get 3 free months of service. And, of course, a big thanks to Oyster Bay Brewing Company, located at 36 Audrey Avenue in Oyster Bay. You can order their great beers and merchandise at oysterbaybrewing.com for curbside pickup, local delivery, or shipping anywhere in New York, and get 15% off with coupon code HNINY. Follow Christian on the Twitter at C_Arnold01. Follow myself at Shawnee Hockey. Follow the show at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Again, a big thanks to you guys. We'll let you guys know when the next show's coming. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your summers. We'll see you soon.